The desert wind carried whispers through Clifton, Arizona, that autumn day in 1882, and every single one of them was about how Isaac Ingram had lost his mind for agreeing to marry Marla Sutton. Isaac stood at the small church altar, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, his dark hair slicked down with water that was already evaporating in the dry heat. At 32 years old, he had built his ranch from nothing, survived droughts and cattle rustlers, and earned the respect of nearly every man in town. Yet today, as the doors creaked open and Marla appeared in a simple white dress borrowed from the general store owner's wife, he heard the sharp intake of breath from the few people who had bothered to attend. Marla walked down the aisle alone. Her auburn hair was pinned up carefully, revealing a face that Isaac found beautiful despite the way her green eyes darted nervously from side to side. She was 24, and according to everyone in Clifton, she was cursed. Bad luck. A woman no decent man should touch. The ceremony was brief. Reverend Thompson rushed through the words as though afraid lingering too long might bring misfortune upon his church. When Isaac slipped the simple gold band onto Marla's finger, her hand trembled so badly he had to steady it with both of his own. "You may kiss your bride," the Reverend said, already closing his Bible. Isaac leaned down and pressed his lips gently to Marla's. She tasted like mint tea and fear. When he pulled back, her eyes were wide with something he could not quite name. Gratitude, perhaps, or disbelief that he had actually gone through with it. The handful of guests dispersed quickly after the ceremony. Isaac's foreman, Tom Crawford, clapped him on the shoulder with a worried expression. "Boss, if you need anything, you know where to find me." "I will be fine, Tom. Take the rest of the day off." "You sure about this?" Tom glanced at Marla, who stood a few feet away, clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers that Isaac had picked that morning. "I am sure," Isaac said firmly. Tom nodded and left, though his doubt hung in the air like the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the church windows. Isaac had arranged for his wagon to take them back to his ranch, which sat 5 miles outside of town on good grazing land near the San Francisco River. The ride was silent except for the creak of wheels and the steady clip of his horse's hooves. Marla sat beside him on the bench, her hands folded in her lap, her borrowed dress already showing a fine layer of dust along the hem. "Thank you," she said suddenly, her voice barely audible over the noise of the wagon. Isaac glanced at her. "For what? For marrying me. I know what people say. I know what you risked by taking me as your wife." "People say a lot of things," Isaac replied. "Most of it is nonsense." Marla's lips curved into a sad smile. "This time it is not." Isaac wanted to ask what she meant, but something in her expression stopped him. Instead, he focused on guiding the horses along the rutted road, past the copper mines that had given Clifton its recent growth, past the scattered homesteads where families watched them pass with curious or pitying eyes. His ranch house came into view as the sun began its descent toward the western mountains. It was a solid structure, built from adobe and timber, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Isaac had built it himself over the course of 2 years, planning every detail with the hope that someday he would share it with a wife. Several corrals stood nearby, currently housing about 30 horses in various stages of training. Beyond them stretched the open range where his small herd of cattle grazed. "It is beautiful," Marla said softly as Isaac helped her down from the wagon. "It is home," Isaac said. "You're home now." He showed her inside, carrying her single trunk of belongings as though it weighed nothing. The interior was neat but sparse, furnished with things Isaac had made or bought secondhand. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall. 2 bedrooms and a small washroom completed the house. "I put fresh linens on the bed this morning," Isaac said, setting her trunk down in the larger bedroom. "And there is water in the pitcher if you want to wash up. I will get dinner started." Marla stood in the doorway, looking at the room that would now be hers to share with this man she barely knew. "Isaac," he turned to face her. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Why did you agree to marry me when you could have had any number of other women, women without reputations? Women who would not bring you shame?" Isaac considered the question carefully. "I needed a wife, you needed a husband, it seemed like a practical arrangement. But you do not know me, you do not know what happened." "I know enough," Isaac said. "I know you work hard. I have seen you helping at the boarding house, cleaning rooms and cooking meals. I know you are honest because Mrs. Patterson vouches for you, and she does not vouch for anyone lightly. And I know that whatever people think you did, you have paid for it 10 times over in the way they treat you." Tears welled in Marla's eyes, but she blinked them back. "You are a good man, Isaac Ingram." "I am a practical man," he corrected gently. "Now, wash up if you like. I will call you when dinner is ready." Isaac left her alone and went to the kitchen. He built up the fire in the stove and started preparing the simple meal he had planned. Beef stew from meat he had cooked the day before, fresh bread from the bakery in town, and coffee strong enough to strip paint. It was nothing fancy, but it was filling. As he worked, Isaac thought about the past 6 weeks since he had first approached Marla with his proposal. He had noticed her months earlier, working quietly at the boarding house, keeping her head down while other women crossed the street to avoid her. When he asked Mrs. Patterson about Marla's story, the older woman had grown tight-lipped. "She had a tragedy in her life," Mrs. Patterson had said. "People here have decided she is to blame for it. But I have known that girl since she came to Clifton 3 years ago, and I can tell you she has a good heart." That is all you need to know. It had been enough for Isaac. He needed help running his ranch, and he wanted the companionship of a wife. After his own parents had died in a cholera outbreak when he was 19, he had spent 13 years building his life alone. He was tired of loneliness. And if marrying Marla meant giving her a chance at a decent life while gaining a partner for himself, it seemed like a fair trade. Marla emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later, having changed into a simple brown dress that looked worn but clean. She had let her hair down and it fell in waves past her shoulders. Isaac found himself staring before he caught himself and returned his attention to the stew. "Can I help?" Marla asked. "You can set the table. Plates are in that cupboard." They worked in comfortable silence, moving around each other in the small kitchen. When everything was ready, they sat down at the rough-hewn table Isaac had built years ago. He said a brief prayer of thanks, then they ate. "This is good," Marla said after a few bites. "You are a better cook than most men I have known. When you live alone for 13 years, you learn to cook or you starve," Isaac said with a slight smile. "You have lived here that long. I came to Arizona Territory in 1869, right after my parents died. Started working as a ranch hand on various spreads, saved my money and bought this land in 1876. Been building it up ever since. It must have been hard doing it all alone." Isaac shrugged. "Hard work never scared me, but yes, it would have been easier with a partner. That is why I am glad you agreed to marry me." Marla set down her spoon, her expression troubled. "Isaac, there is something I need to tell you, something I should have told you before we married, but I was afraid you would change your mind." Here it was. Isaac had been expecting this moment, though he had thought it might come later. He set down his own spoon and gave Marla his full attention. "All right, I am listening." Marla took a deep breath, her hands twisting together in her lap. 3 years ago, I came to Clifton with a man named James. We were not married, though he told everyone we were. He said we would make it official once we got settled, but that was just another one of his lies. She paused, clearly struggling with the memories. Isaac waited patiently. James was a gambler, a good one, or at least he thought he was. We moved from town to town, always staying one step ahead of the people he owed money to. When we got to Clifton, he promised it would be different. He said he would find honest work and we would build a real life together. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. What happened? Isaac asked gently. He started gambling again within a week, lost money we did not have. Then one night he went to a high-stakes game at the saloon, said it would be his last game, that he would win big and we would finally be set. Instead, he accused another player of cheating and pulled a gun. There was a shootout. James killed one man and wounded another before he was shot dead himself. Marla's voice had gone flat, as though she was reciting facts about someone else's life. The man who died was Samuel Morrison, the son of one of the biggest ranchers in the area. The wounded man was the sheriff's deputy. People were furious. They wanted someone to pay for what James had done, but he was already dead, so they turned on me. What did they do? Isaac's hands had curled into fists on the table. They ran me out of the boarding house where we were staying, threw my things into the street and told me to leave town. But I had nowhere to go and no money for travel. Mrs. Patterson took me in and gave me work, but everyone else made it clear I was not welcome. They said I must have known what James was planning, that I was probably in on it somehow, even though I had been at the boarding house all night. They said I was bad luck, that anyone who associated with me would come to harm. That is ridiculous, Isaac said firmly. You are not responsible for what that man did. Try telling that to the people of Clifton. For 3 years I have been invisible. No one speaks to me except Mrs. Patterson and a few others. Men assume I am available for their advances since I lived with James without marriage. Women treat me like I am diseased. When you first approached me about marriage, I thought it was a cruel joke. It was not a joke. I know that now. But Isaac, you need to understand what you have taken on by marrying me. People will talk about you the way they talk about me. Some might even stop doing business with you. You could lose friendships, lose money. I do not want to be the reason your life falls apart. Isaac stood and walked around the table to where Marla sat. He knelt beside her chair so their eyes were level. Listen to me, Marla. I went into this marriage with my eyes open. I knew people had turned their backs on you, and I knew some might turn their backs on me because of it. But I have never been the kind of man who makes decisions based on what other people think. I judge people by their actions, by their character. And everything I have seen from you tells me you are a good woman who got dealt a bad hand. But you do not really know me, Marla whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. Then I will get to know you. We have time. That is what marriage is it not? Learning each other, building a life together. It does not all happen in one day. Marla turned to look at him fully, searching his face as though trying to determine if he was real. You are unlike any man I have ever known. I will take that as a compliment, Isaac said with a gentle smile. He reached up and wiped the tears from her cheeks with his thumb. Now, finish your dinner before it gets cold. Tomorrow we can start figuring out how this partnership is going to work. They finished their meal in a more comfortable silence. After dinner, Marla insisted on washing the dishes while Isaac went out to check on the horses and make sure everything was secured for the night. When he returned, he found her standing in the main room, looking uncertain. I was not sure where you wanted me to sleep, she said softly. Isaac had been thinking about this very question all day. The marriage had been arranged as a practical matter, but they were legally wed now. Still, he did not want to push Marla into anything she was not ready for. The bed is big enough for both of us, he said carefully. But I can sleep out here on the floor if you would prefer. Marla bit her lip, considering. We are married. It would be strange for you to sleep on the floor in your own house. I want you to be comfortable, Isaac said. That is more important than convention. Something in Marla's expression softened. She crossed the room to stand in front of him, then slowly reached up and placed her hand on his chest. Isaac could feel his heart pounding beneath her palm. You have been nothing but kind to me, Marla said. You have given me hope when I thought I had none left. I do not know what kind of wife I will be to you, but I promise I will try to make this work. That is all I can ask, Isaac said. He covered her hand with his own. They stood like that for a long moment, the fire crackling softly in the background, the night sounds of the desert drifting through the open windows. Then Marla pulled her hand back and managed a small smile. I should get ready for bed. Take your time. I will bank the fire. When Isaac entered the bedroom a while later, he found Marla already under the covers, wearing a modest nightgown. She had left a lamp burning low on the bedside table. He changed into his nightshirt, aware of her eyes on him, then slid into bed beside her. The space between them felt vast despite the bed's modest size. Isaac lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, very conscious of the woman beside him. This was his wife. The reality of it was just beginning to sink in. Isaac, Marla's voice was small in the darkness. Yes. Thank you for not forcing me. I know some men would have expected more on their wedding night. I am not some men, and I do not want you to ever feel forced in this marriage. When the time is right, we will both know. He heard her shift in the bed, moving slightly closer. You are a good man, Isaac Ingram. Whatever happens, I want you to know I am grateful. Gratitude is not what I want from you, Isaac said honestly. I want a partner, a friend. Maybe someday more than that, but it has to be real, Marla. It has to be something we both choose. I understand, she whispered. They fell silent after that, and eventually Isaac heard Marla's breathing even out into the rhythm of sleep. He lay awake longer, thinking about the path he had chosen and wondering if he had been naive to think he could help this woman start over. But when he finally drifted off, it was with a sense of peace he had not felt in years. The sun woke Isaac at dawn, as it always did. He dressed quietly, trying not to disturb Marla, and went outside to begin his morning chores. The horses needed feeding, the cattle needed checking, and there were always repairs to be made around the ranch. He was mucking out one of the stalls when Marla appeared in the doorway of the barn, wearing her work dress and an apron. I made breakfast, she said. Nothing fancy, just eggs and bread. That sounds perfect. Let me finish up here and I will be in. Marla lingered in the doorway. Is there anything I can do to help? With the ranch work, I mean. I am stronger than I look. Isaac leaned on his pitchfork and considered her. Have you ever worked with horses? A little. My father had a small farm back in Missouri before he died. I know how to feed them and brush them down. I was never much good at riding, though. That is a start. Tell you what, after breakfast I will show you around and we can figure out what tasks suit you. There is plenty of work for both of us. Marla's face lit up with the first genuine smile Isaac had seen from her. I would like that. I would like to feel useful. Breakfast was indeed simple but good. Marla had a light hand with the eggs, and the bread was toasted perfectly. As they ate, Isaac outlined his daily routine and explained the state of the ranch. Right now, I have about 200 head of cattle and 30 horses. The cattle pretty much take care of themselves except during roundup and branding. The horses are where I make most of my money. I break and train them, then sell them to ranchers, the cavalry, and anyone else who needs good working animals. That sounds like a lot for one man, Marla observed. It is. I had to let my hired hand go 6 months ago when money got tight. Tom helps out when he can, but he has his own family to worry about. That is another reason I needed a wife, someone to share the load. Well, you have one now. Put me to work. Isaac did exactly that. He started by showing Marla the full extent of the property, pointing out the boundaries and explaining his plans for expansion. Then he taught her how to properly measure out feed for the horses and how to check their hooves for stones or injuries. Marla proved to be a quick learner, asking intelligent questions and attacking each task with determination. By noon, they were both dusty and sweaty, but Isaac felt more optimistic about his decision than ever. Marla was not afraid of hard work, and she seemed genuinely interested in learning about the ranch. They ate a quick lunch, then Isaac suggested they ride out to check on the cattle. "I told you I am not much of a rider," Marla protested. "Then it is time to learn. Every ranch wife needs to know how to ride. Come on, I have a gentle mare that will be perfect for you." Isaac saddled up his own horse, a sturdy chestnut gelding named Copper, and a calm bay mare named Daisy for Marla. He helped Marla mount, adjusting her stirrups and showing her how to hold the reins properly. "Just relax and move with her," he instructed. "Daisy knows what she is doing. She will not give you any trouble." They rode out at a walk, Isaac keeping close to Marla's side. She was stiff in the saddle at first, but gradually began to relax as Daisy plodded along without incident. The cattle were scattered across the grassland, grazing peacefully under the afternoon sun. "They look healthy," Marla commented. "They do now, but it has been a hard year. We need rain." "The grass is starting to thin out in places." They rode in silence for a while, enjoying the open space and the warmth of the sun. Isaac found himself watching Marla out of the corner of his eye. There was color in her cheeks now, and she sat straighter in the saddle. She looked like she belonged here. "What are you thinking?" Marla asked, catching him looking at her. "That you look good on a horse," Isaac said honestly. Marla ducked her head, but he caught the pleased smile before she hid it. "You are just saying that. I do not say things I do not mean." They continued their ride, checking the herd and making sure none of the cattle had wandered too far. On the way back to the ranch house, they passed within a mile of a neighboring property. A man was working in a field near the property line, and when he looked up and saw them, his expression hardened. He turned his back deliberately and went back to his work. Isaac felt Marla tense beside him. "That is Mr. Morrison," she said quietly. "Samuel Morrison was his nephew." "He has no right to blame you for what happened," Isaac said firmly. "Maybe not, but he does anyway. They all do. Then they are fools." Isaac guided Copper closer to Daisy, reaching over to briefly touch Marla's hand. "You are a good person, Marla. And anyone who cannot see that is not worth worrying about. You keep saying things like that, and I might start to believe you. Good. That is the point." Over the following weeks, Isaac and Marla settled into a routine. Each morning they rose at dawn and worked together, until the afternoon heat became too intense, then retreated to the relative cool of the house for the hottest hours. Evenings were spent on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains while they talked about the day's work and their plans for the future. Slowly, Marla began to open up more. She told Isaac about her childhood in Missouri, about her parents who had died when she was 17, leaving her alone and vulnerable. That was how James had gotten his hooks into her. He had seemed charming and stable, promising her security and adventure. By the time she realized what he really was, she had been in too deep to easily escape. "I should have left him sooner," Marla said one evening. "I knew he was bad news, but I was scared of being alone again. I thought having someone, even someone like James, was better than having no one." "You are not alone now," Isaac reminded her gently. "No," Marla agreed, looking at him with an expression that made his heart skip. "I am not." They had maintained separate sleeping arrangements, more or less. They shared the bed, but Isaac made sure to keep a respectful distance, and Marla did the same. But little by little, that distance was shrinking. Sometimes Isaac would wake in the morning to find Marla curled against his side. Sometimes she would take his hand while they sat on the porch. Small touches, small moments of connection, but they added up. Isaac found himself falling for his wife in ways he had not anticipated. It was not just her beauty, though she was beautiful. It was her strength, her resilience, her refusal to let the past crush her. It was the way she laughed when one of the foals did something silly, or the way she bit her lip when she was concentrating on a difficult task. It was everything about her. The problem was that Isaac did not know if Marla felt the same way. She was grateful to him, that much was clear. She seemed to enjoy his company. But gratitude and enjoyment were not the same as love, and Isaac wanted more than a marriage of convenience. He wanted what his parents had once shared, that deep partnership, where two people were better together than they ever could have been apart. Things came to a head 6 weeks into their marriage. Isaac had ridden into town to buy supplies, and when he arrived at the general store, he found himself facing a group of men he knew well. One of them was Richard Morrison, the uncle of the man James had killed. "Ingram," Morrison said coldly. "Heard you went and married that woman." "I married Marla, yes," Isaac said evenly. "Is that a problem?" "It is when you are married to the woman whose man killed my nephew," Morrison shot back. "Samuel was a good boy. He had his whole life ahead of him. And he died because of that gambler she was with. James was the one who pulled the trigger, not Marla. She had nothing to do with it. She was with him. She must have known what kind of man he was. And now you have brought her into our community as if she belongs here. It is disrespectful to Samuel's memory." Isaac felt his temper rising, but he kept his voice level. "Samuel's death was a tragedy, but Marla is no more responsible for it than you are. She is my wife now, and I would appreciate it if you and everyone else in this town would treat her with the respect she deserves." "Respect?" Morrison's face flushed red. "You want us to respect a woman like that? You have lost your mind, Ingram, and you have lost my friendship too." "If your friendship requires me to treat my wife poorly, then I am happy to lose it," Isaac said flatly. He turned and walked into the store, his heart pounding with anger and adrenaline. The storekeeper, a weathered man named Henry, gave him a sympathetic look as he filled Isaac's order. "Do not let Morrison get to you," Henry said quietly. "He has been eaten up with bitterness since Samuel died. It is not about your wife, not really. It is about him not being able to accept that his nephew got himself killed by being in the wrong place at the wrong time." "Marla does not deserve the treatment she has gotten," Isaac said. "No, she does not. Mrs. Patterson says the same thing. And for what it is worth, I think you did a good thing by marrying her. Girl like that needs someone in her corner." "I am in her corner," Isaac said. "And I will stay there, no matter what people like Morrison say." He loaded his supplies into the wagon and headed back to the ranch, still fuming. When he arrived, he found Marla working in the small vegetable garden she had started near the house. She had been talking about wanting fresh vegetables, and Isaac had helped her till and plant the plot. Now tiny seedlings were starting to push up through the soil. "How was town?" Marla asked, straightening up and pushing her hair back from her face. "Fine," Isaac said shortly. Marla studied him with those perceptive green eyes. "What happened?" Isaac hesitated. He did not want to burden Marla with Morrison's ugly words, but he also did not want to lie to her. "I ran into Richard Morrison. He said some things about you, about us." Marla's face fell. "I am sorry, Isaac. I knew this would happen. I knew people would turn on you because of me." "Stop," Isaac said, more sharply than he intended. He took a breath and softened his tone. "Stop apologizing for other people's ignorance." Morrison is angry about his nephew, and he is taking it out on you because he cannot take it out on James. That does not make it right, and it does not make it your fault. But it is affecting you now. Your friendships, your business. I do not care, Isaac said, and he realized it was true. I do not care what Morrison thinks, or what anyone else thinks. You are my wife, Marla. You are part of my life now, and I would rather have you and lose half the people in this territory than keep their friendship and lose you. Marla stared at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Isaac, I do not know what to say. You do not have to say anything. Isaac closed the distance between them, his boots crunching on the dry earth. But I need you to understand something. This is not just a practical arrangement for me anymore. Maybe it started that way, but it is not that way now. I care about you, Marla. I care about what happens to you, how you feel, whether you are happy. And seeing people like Morrison try to tear you down makes me furious because you deserve so much better. I care about you too, Marla whispered. More than I thought I could care about anyone. After James, I thought I was done with men, done with trusting anyone. But you have been so kind, so patient. You have made me feel safe in a way I have never felt safe before. Isaac reached out and cupped her face in his hands. You are safe with me. I promise you that. And you will always have a home here, always have someone in your corner. I know, Marla said, and then she did something that surprised them both. She rose up on her toes and kissed him. It was different from the chaste kiss they had shared at their wedding. This was deeper, more real, full of weeks of growing affection and unspoken feelings. Isaac pulled Marla closer, wrapping his arms around her and kissing her back with all the emotion he had been holding in. She melted against him, her hands sliding up to grip his shoulders. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marla looked up at him with wonder in her eyes. I have wanted to do that for weeks, she admitted. Why did you not? Isaac asked, his voice rough. I was afraid. Afraid it was too soon, afraid you did not feel the same way, afraid I would ruin this good thing we were building. You could not ruin it, Isaac assured her. Marla, I have been falling in love with you since the day we married. Maybe even before that. I was just waiting for you to be ready. I am ready, Marla said. I am ready to be your wife in every way. I want this to be a real marriage, Isaac, not just an arrangement, but something real. Isaac kissed her again, gentler this time but no less meaningful. Then that is what we will have. They went inside, and for the first time since their wedding, they came together as husband and wife in truth. Isaac was gentle and patient, letting Marla set the pace, making sure she felt cherished and safe. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the afternoon light, Marla traced patterns on his chest with her finger. I never thought I could feel this way again, she said softly. After everything that happened with James, I thought I was broken somehow, but you have made me whole again. You were never broken, Isaac said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You were just hurt. There is a difference. Maybe. But either way, you fixed it. They stayed in bed for the rest of the afternoon, talking and dozing and simply being together. It felt like a new beginning, like their marriage had truly started in that moment. When evening came and they finally rose to take care of the evening chores, everything felt different. The touches were more lingering, the glances more heated, the connection between them stronger. Over the next few months, Isaac and Marla built their life together in earnest. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. Marla proved to have a talent for training horses, developing a gentle but firm approach that worked especially well with the more skittish animals. Isaac handled the cattle and the business side of things, while they shared the domestic work equally. In town, attitudes toward them were mixed. Some people, like Henry the storekeeper and Mrs. Patterson, welcomed Marla warmly and treated her like any other respectable ranch wife. Others, like Richard Morrison, remained coldly hostile. Most fell somewhere in between, cautiously polite but still standoffish. Isaac did not let it bother him. He had Marla, and that was enough. She had blossomed over their months together, growing more confident and more herself. The haunted look that had shadowed her eyes on their wedding day was gone, replaced by a light that Isaac took pride in knowing he had helped kindle. One day in late spring of 1883, Tom Crawford rode out to the ranch with news. "Boss, you heard about the new rancher who bought the old Patterson spread?" Isaac looked up from the fence he was mending. "I heard it sold." "Who bought it?" "Fellow named Jack Irving. Came in from Texas with a crew and a big herd. Word is he is looking to become a major player in the area. He has been making the rounds, meeting all the ranchers." "I suppose I will meet him eventually then," Isaac said, returning his attention to the fence. "There is more," Tom said. "He was in the saloon yesterday, and Morrison was running his mouth about you and Mrs. Ingram. This Irving fellow shut him down hard. Said any man who would judge a woman for her past was no man at all, nearly came to blows over it." Isaac straightened up, interested now. "He defended Marla, defended both of you. Said he had heard good things about your ranch, and he looked forward to doing business with decent folk." Morrison left in a huff. "Sounds like Irving is a man worth knowing," Isaac said. "I thought you should know. Not everyone around here thinks Morrison is right." Isaac thanked Tom and finished his work on the fence. That evening he told Marla about Jack Irving's defense of them. She looked pleased but also worried. "I hope his standing up for us does not cause him problems," she said. "He is new here. He needs to make friends, not enemies." "A man who stands up for what is right is not going to have trouble making the friends worth having," Isaac said. "I would like to ride over and introduce myself properly. Maybe tomorrow." "Can I come with you?" Marla asked. "I know some women would say I should stay home, but I would like to meet this man who defended us. I would not have it any other way." They rode over to the Irving ranch the next morning. The place was a hive of activity, with cowboys working cattle in the distance and carpenters making repairs to the old buildings. A tall man with dark hair stood near the main house, directing a group of workers. When he saw Isaac and Marla approaching, he walked out to meet them. "You must be Isaac Ingram," the man said, extending his hand. "I am Jack Irving. I have heard good things about your ranch." "Thank you, this is my wife, Marla." Jack tipped his hat to Marla with a warm smile. "Mrs. Ingram, it is a pleasure. I hope you do not mind me saying so, but I have heard about the treatment you have received from some people in town. I want you to know that not everyone shares those views. Where I come from, we judge people by their character, not by circumstances beyond their control." Marla's eyes widened. "That is very kind of you to say, Mr. Irving. I mean it, and please call me Jack. I hope we can be good neighbors and friends." They spent an hour talking with Jack, learning about his plans for his ranch and sharing information about the area. Isaac found himself liking the man immensely. Jack was straightforward and honest, with a good sense of humor and clear respect for both Isaac and Marla. As they rode home, Marla seemed thoughtful. "He is a good man," she said, "and he did not look at me the way most people do, like I am something dirty or shameful." "That is because you are neither of those things," Isaac said firmly. "And maybe having Jack around will remind some other people of that fact." Jack Irving proved to be as good as his word. Over the following weeks, he made a point of being friendly with the Ingrams, even inviting them to dinner at his ranch once he had gotten settled. He also continued to shut down any negative talk about Marla whenever he heard it, earning him a reputation as someone who did not tolerate small-mindedness. Slowly, very slowly, attitudes in Clifton began to shift. It started with a few people being slightly less cold to Marla when she came to town. Then a few more. By midsummer, some women were actually nodding to her in the street, and the men who did business with Isaac stopped acting like dealing with him was some kind of moral compromise. Richard Morrison remained hostile, but he was increasingly isolated in his views. Most people seemed ready to move on, and Marla's impeccable behavior as Isaac's wife made it hard for anyone to justify treating her poorly. In August, Marla came to Isaac with news that made his heart soar. "I am pregnant," she said, her eyes shining with joy and trepidation. "The doctor confirmed it today when we were in town." Isaac picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing. "That is wonderful. When?" "Early March, the doctor thinks." "Isaac, are you happy?" "I know we have not talked much about children." "Happy? Marla, I am thrilled. I have always wanted a family. To have that with you, to raise children together on this ranch, it is more than I ever hoped for." Marla's pregnancy progressed smoothly. She continued working on the ranch as much as she could, though Isaac tried to take on more of the heavy work as her belly grew. Jack Irving and Tom Crawford both pitched in without being asked, helping with the cattle roundup in the fall and taking care of the tasks that required climbing or heavy lifting. Winter came, bringing cold nights and occasional snow to the high desert. Isaac made sure the house was well stocked with firewood and supplies, not wanting to risk Marla's health by having to make frequent trips to town. They spent the long evenings together, sometimes reading aloud from the few books they owned, sometimes just talking about their plans for the future. "What do you want to name the baby?" Marla asked one night as they lay in bed, her head resting on Isaac's shoulder. "I had not thought about it much," Isaac admitted. "What about you? If it is a boy, I would like to name him after my father. His name was Michael. And if it is a girl, maybe Grace, after your mother." Isaac felt a lump in his throat. "My mother would have loved that, and I think Michael is a fine name for a son." "You think it will be a boy?" "I have no idea, but either way, I know this child will be loved." Marla's labor started on a cold March morning in 1884. Isaac rode to town at breakneck speed to fetch the doctor and Mrs. Patterson, who had agreed to act as midwife. Then he paced the main room of his house, trying not to panic every time he heard Marla cry out. "First babies take time, Mrs. Patterson said when she emerged hours later to get fresh water. "She is doing fine, Isaac, but it will be a while yet." It was early evening when the baby finally came. Isaac heard a thin wail from the bedroom and his heart nearly stopped. Then Mrs. Patterson opened the door with a smile on her face. "You have a son," she said. "A healthy baby boy, and Marla did beautifully. Go meet your son, Isaac." Isaac entered the bedroom to find Marla propped up against the pillows, exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket. Isaac approached slowly, almost afraid to breathe, and looked down at his son for the first time. The baby was red and wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and his eyes screwed shut. His little fists waved in the air as he made soft mewing sounds. Isaac felt tears prick his eyes. "He is perfect," Isaac whispered. "He is," Marla agreed. "Michael Isaac Ingram, our son." Isaac leaned down and kissed Marla gently. "You did so well. I am so proud of you." "We made him together," Marla said, smiling up at Isaac with so much love it took his breath away. "He is ours." Isaac sat on the edge of the bed and carefully took Michael into his arms. The baby settled immediately, seeming to know instinctively that he was safe. Isaac looked from his son to his wife and felt a wave of emotion so strong it nearly knocked him over. "I love you," he said to Marla. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Marla replied. "Thank you for giving me this. A family, a home, a life worth living. I never thought I would have any of it again." "You deserve all of it," Isaac said. You deserve everything good this world has to offer." They sat together for a long time, the three of them, their new family. Outside, the desert wind howled, but inside there was only warmth and love and hope for the future. Word of Michael's birth spread through Clifton quickly. To Isaac's surprise and pleasure, many people sent gifts and well wishes. Jack Irving rode over with a beautiful wooden cradle he had made himself. Tom Crawford brought a rocking horse he had carved. Even some of the women who had previously shunned Marla showed up with baby clothes and blankets. "I told you," Isaac said as Marla marveled at the outpouring of support. "People just needed to see you for who you really are. Now you have proven yourself as a wife and a mother, they cannot ignore it anymore." "I still cannot believe it," Marla said, holding up a tiny shirt one of the ladies had sewn. "Mrs. Henderson made this. She crossed the street to avoid me just last year. Things change, people change, and you have made it impossible for them to keep treating you badly." There was one notable exception to the warm reception of Michael's birth. Richard Morrison made a point of saying loudly in the saloon that the child was probably cursed like his mother. The comment got back to Isaac through Tom, and Isaac had to be physically restrained from riding into town and confronting Morrison. "He is trying to get a rise out of you," Marla said when Isaac told her about it. "Do not give him the satisfaction. Our son is healthy and loved, and that is all that matters." "He has no right to say such things about my family," Isaac fumed. "No, he does not. But you punching him in the face will not change his mind. It will just give him more ammunition to use against us. Let it go, Isaac. We have won. Look around you. We have friends, a thriving ranch, and a beautiful son. Morrison is a bitter old man clinging to his anger. Do not let him poison our happiness." Isaac knew Marla was right, but it took him a while to let go of his anger. Eventually, though, he did. There were too many good things in his life to waste energy on Morrison's bitterness. Michael grew quickly, a healthy and happy baby who rarely cried and seemed fascinated by everything around him. By the time summer arrived, he was beginning to smile and reach for things. Isaac loved coming in from the fields and finding Marla with the baby. The two of them bathed in afternoon sunlight, Marla singing softly while Michael gazed up at her with adoring eyes. The ranch continued to prosper. With Jack Irving's friendship came business connections and opportunities Isaac had not had before. Jack sent buyers Isaac's way and helped him negotiate better prices for his horses. Isaac returned the favor by sharing his knowledge of the local range conditions and helping Jack establish good relationships with the other ranchers in the area. By fall of 1884, the Ingrams were on solid financial footing for the first time since Isaac had started the ranch. They were able to hire a part-time hand to help with the work, freeing up more time for Isaac to spend with Marla and Michael. They even began talking about expanding the herd and maybe adding a second bedroom to the house. One crisp October afternoon, Isaac returned from checking the cattle to find a strange horse tied up outside his house. He tensed, his hand instinctively going to the rifle on his saddle, but then he heard laughter from inside. Marla's laughter and a man's deeper chuckle. Isaac dismounted and entered the house cautiously, ready for trouble. But the scene that greeted him was entirely peaceful. Marla sat at the table, bouncing Michael on her knee, while Jack Irving sat across from her holding a cup of coffee. "Isaac," Marla called happily when she saw him. Jack stopped by with good news. "Tell him, Jack." Jack stood and shook Isaac's hand. "I have been talking to some of the other ranchers and we want to start a local cattlemen's association. A way to coordinate roundups, share information about market prices and present a united front to the railroad and the buyers. We want you to be part of it." "Me?" Isaac was surprised. Jack, there are ranchers around here with 10 times my herd size. This is not about the size of your herd. It is about character and good business sense. Everyone I have talked to respects the way you run your operation. And frankly, having you involved sends a message about what kind of organization we are building, one based on merit, not gossip and prejudice. Isaac looked at Marla, who was beaming with pride. What do you think? I think you should do it, Marla said. You have worked so hard to build this ranch, you deserve to be recognized for that. All right then, Isaac said, turning back to Jack. I am in. When is the first meeting? They spent the next hour discussing the details of the new association. When Jack finally left, Isaac pulled Marla into his arms. Michael squeezed between them. Did you hear that? He said to the baby. Your father is going to be part of the Cattlemen's Association. What do you think of that? Michael gurgled happily and grabbed at Isaac's nose, making both parents laugh. I am so proud of you, Marla said. When I think about where we started, how scared I was on our wedding day, and look at us now, we have everything I ever dreamed of. We have everything I dreamed of too, Isaac said, kissing her softly. A family, a home, respect in the community. I could not ask for more. Well, Marla said with a mischievous smile, maybe in a year or two we could add another child to the family. Michael should not be an only child, do you think? I think that is an excellent idea, Isaac said, his smile widening. But maybe we should wait until he is sleeping through the night consistently first. Marla laughed and agreed. They spent the evening on the porch as they often did, watching the sun set over the mountains while Michael dozed in Marla's arms. The desert was beautiful in the fading light, all gold and purple shadows. You ever regret it? Marla asked suddenly. Marrying me, I mean. Taking on all the complications that came with me. Isaac turned to look at her, surprised by the question. Never, not for a single moment. Why would you ask that? I was just thinking about how much easier your life would have been if you had married someone else. Someone without a past, without enemies in town. Easier maybe, but not better, Isaac said firmly. Marla, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You have made me happier than I knew I could be. Whatever difficulties came with our marriage were nothing compared to the joy of being with you. I feel the same way, Marla said softly. You saved my life, Isaac, and then you made it worth living again. We saved each other, Isaac corrected. That is what marriage is supposed to be. Two people making each other stronger, better, happier. The first meeting of the Cattlemen's Association took place in November. Isaac attended, along with Jack Irving and about 15 other ranchers from around Clifton. Richard Morrison was notably absent, having refused to join any organization that included Isaac. The meeting went well, with the ranchers agreeing on fair practices for the upcoming roundup and establishing a schedule for sharing bulls to improve their herds. Isaac was asked to be on the committee that would negotiate with the railroad about shipping rates, a responsibility he took seriously. After the meeting, several of the ranchers approached Isaac to shake his hand and welcome him properly to their ranks. These were men who had been coolly polite to him at best over the past few years, but now they treated him as an equal. About your wife, one of them, a gruff man named Bill Harper, said awkwardly. I think maybe some of us were too quick to judge. My wife had tea with Mrs. Ingram last week and said she is a fine woman. I am sorry for the way we treated you both. Isaac was taken aback but pleased. I appreciate you saying that, Bill. It means a lot. Well, it needed to be said. A man stands by his family and you stood by yours when it was not easy to do. That says something about your character. Isaac left the meeting feeling lighter than he had in months. Things were truly changing. The stain of James's actions was finally beginning to fade, and people were seeing Marla for who she really was. When he got home and told Marla about Bill Harper's apology, she cried happy tears. "I never thought I would see the day," she said. "I thought I would always be the woman nobody wanted to know." "You are the woman everyone should want to know," Isaac said, pulling her close. "Smart, strong, kind, beautiful. Anyone who cannot see that is a fool." Winter came again, their third as a married couple. They settled into the quiet rhythms of ranch life in the cold months, with Isaac handling the outdoor work while Marla managed the house and cared for Michael. The baby was walking now, toddling around the house and getting into everything. He had Isaac's dark hair and Marla's green eyes, and a personality that was all his own, curious, fearless, and affectionate. One snowy afternoon, in January of 1885, Marla sat Isaac down with a familiar gleam in her eye. "I have news," she said. "Let me guess," Isaac said, his heart already starting to race. "We are going to have another baby." "We are," Marla confirmed, laughing at his expression. "Are you happy?" "Happy, Marla, I am overjoyed." He pulled her onto his lap and kissed her soundly. "When?" "Late summer, the doctor thinks. Maybe early September." "Michael will have a little brother or sister before he is 2, Isaac marveled. "We are building quite the family." "We are," Marla agreed. "Isaac, I want to thank you for everything, for believing in me when no one else did, for giving me a home and a family, for loving me even when I did not think I deserved to be loved. You have given me everything." "You have given me just as much," Isaac said. "Before you, I was just a man working on a ranch. Now I am a husband and a father. I have purpose and meaning beyond just surviving. You did that, Marla. You made my life complete." They held each other for a long time, Michael playing at their feet, the fire crackling warmly in the background. Outside, snow fell softly over the desert, blanketing everything in white. It was peaceful, perfect, everything Isaac had ever wanted. The months passed peacefully. Spring came, bringing new calves and foals. Summer arrived with its baking heat, and Marla's belly grew round with their second child. She remained active as long as she could, but by late August, Isaac insisted she rest more. "I am pregnant, not fragile," Marla protested, but she was secretly grateful for the excuse to sit down more often. Michael, now a rambunctious toddler, required more energy than she sometimes had. On a warm September evening, Marla's labor started. This time Isaac was less panicked, but no less concerned. He sent Tom racing to town for the doctor and Mrs. Patterson, while he stayed with Marla and kept Michael occupied. The labor was shorter this time, only a few hours instead of the day-long ordeal with Michael. When Isaac heard the baby's cry, he held his breath until Mrs. Patterson emerged with a smile. "You have a daughter," she announced. "A beautiful, healthy girl." Isaac left Michael with Mrs. Patterson and went to meet his daughter. She was smaller than Michael had been, with a cap of light hair and delicate features. When she opened her eyes and looked at him, Isaac felt his heart melt all over again. "She looks like you," he told Marla. "You think so?" Marla studied their daughter's face. "I think she has your nose." "What should we name her?" Isaac asked. "Grace, like we talked about, Grace Marie Ingram." "Perfect," Isaac said. He sat on the edge of the bed, his arm around Marla, looking down at their daughter. 2 children now. "We are a real family." "We have been a real family since the day we married," Marla corrected gently. "But yes, I know what you mean. We are blessed, Isaac. We are." Michael was initially suspicious of his new sister, not understanding why this tiny creature was getting so much attention. But with patient guidance from Isaac and Marla, he gradually warmed to her. Soon he was fascinated by Grace, wanting to help with everything from feeding to diaper changes. Life settled into a new normal. The ranch continued to thrive. The Cattlemen's Association proved beneficial for everyone involved, and the Ingrams were now fully accepted members of the Clifton community. Even Richard Morrison had stopped his open hostility, though he still avoided the Ingrams when possible. In the spring of 1886, nearly 4 years after their wedding, Isaac and Marla stood on their porch watching Michael chase butterflies while Grace slept in Marla's arms. The ranch spread out before them, green from recent rains, cattle and horses dotting the landscape. "Do you remember our wedding day?" Marla asked suddenly. "Of course. How could I forget?" "I was so scared," Marla said. "Scared of what you would think when I told you about James. Scared that you would regret marrying me. Scared that I would never be able to escape my past. And now?" Isaac asked, though he thought he knew the answer. "Now I am not scared at all. I know I am loved. I know I am safe. I know I belong here with you, with our children on this ranch. My past does not define me anymore. You helped me see that." Isaac pulled Marla close, careful not to jostle the sleeping Grace. "Your past never defined you. It was just something that happened to you. Who you are, your strength and your kindness and your courage, that was always there. I just helped you see it." "We helped each other," Marla said, echoing Isaac's words from years ago. "That is what we do." Michael came running up, breathless and excited. "Papa, I saw 6 butterflies, 6. "That is a lot of butterflies," Isaac said seriously. "Did you catch any?" "No, they were too fast. Can you help me?" "Sure. Let me get a jar from inside." As Isaac went to find a jar for butterfly catching, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. 4 years ago, he had married a woman everyone else had rejected, thinking it was a practical solution to his need for help on the ranch. He had not expected to fall in love. He had not expected to find his soulmate in a woman with a tragic past. But that was exactly what had happened. Marla had become the center of his world, and together they had built something beautiful. A family, a home, a life full of love and purpose. That evening, after the children were in bed, Isaac and Marla sat on the porch as they always did. The stars were brilliant overhead, the air was cool and sweet, and everything was right with the world. "Isaac," Marla said softly. "Yes, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for seeing past what everyone else saw to who I really was. Thank you for loving me." Isaac took her hand and brought it to his lips. "Marla, loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done. Thank you for trusting me enough to let me in. Thank you for being my wife, my partner, the mother of my children. Thank you for making my life better in every possible way." "We were meant to find each other," Marla said. "I truly believe that. All the bad things that happened, all the pain and the loneliness, it led me to you. And I would go through it all again if it meant ending up here." "You do not have to," Isaac said firmly. "The bad times are behind us. Ahead of us is just more of this. More love, more family, more life together." "I like the sound of that," Marla said, leaning her head on Isaac's shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully, safe and loved. Around them, the ranch hummed with life, a testament to their hard work and dedication. And in their hearts, there was only gratitude for the love they had found in the most unlikely of places. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and new challenges. Grace grew into a spirited little girl who loved horses as much as her mother did. Michael became a serious, thoughtful boy who followed his father everywhere, learning the business of ranching. In 1888, Marla gave birth to another son, whom they named Thomas after Tom Crawford, the loyal foreman who had become a close friend to the family. By 1890, 8 years after their wedding, the Ingram ranch had grown significantly. Isaac had purchased additional land and expanded his herds. He was now one of the most respected ranchers in the territory, known for his fair dealing and high-quality stock. Marla had become a pillar of the community, organizing charity drives and helping new families get established in Clifton. The stain of her past had been completely washed away by years of exemplary living. No one remembered or cared about James anymore. Marla was simply Mrs. Ingram, Isaac's beloved wife and the mother of his children. One afternoon in late spring, Isaac and Marla rode out to check on a section of fence near their northern boundary. They had left the children with Tom's wife, grateful for the rare chance to be alone together. It had been a long time since they had taken time just for themselves. "This reminds me of when we were first married," Marla said as they rode side by side. "Just the two of us, learning about each other, falling in love." "We are still learning about each other," Isaac said. "I think that is something that never stops in a good marriage." "True. Although I think I know you pretty well now." Marla's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I know you always check on the horses one more time before bed, even though you already checked them an hour before. I know you secretly give Michael extra cookies when you think I am not looking. I know you hum the same tune every morning when you are shaving." Isaac laughed. "And I know you talk to the chickens when you collect the eggs. I know you rearrange the furniture in the main room about once a month, because you are always looking for a better setup. I know you cry every time we read Michael the story about the brave knight, even though you have read it 100 times." "It is a sad story," Marla protested, but she was smiling. They reached the fence line and dismounted to inspect the posts. The work was routine, something they had done countless times before, but they enjoyed doing it together. After finishing the inspection, they sat in the shade of a cottonwood tree to rest before heading back. "Isaac, can I ask you something?" Marla said. "Of course. Anything. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had not asked me to marry you? Where I would be now, what my life would look like?" Isaac considered the question seriously. "Sometimes. I think you would have eventually found your way out of Clifton, made a life somewhere else. You are too strong to have stayed down forever." "Maybe," Marla said doubtfully. "But I do not think I would have ever been truly happy, not without you. You are my home, Isaac. Not this ranch, not Clifton, but you. Wherever you are, that is where I belong." "I feel the same way," Isaac said, pulling her close. "You are my home too. Everything good in my life flows from you." They kissed in the dappled shade, the horses grazing peacefully nearby, the desert stretching out around them in every direction. It was a perfect moment, one of thousands they had shared over the years, but special nonetheless. When they finally rode back to the ranch house, they found their children playing in the yard under Tom's watchful eye. Michael was teaching Grace how to throw a lasso, while little Thomas toddled around trying to catch the chickens. It was a scene of pure domestic happiness, and it filled Isaac with contentment. That night, after the children were in bed, Isaac and Marla lay in their bed talking as they often did. It was their favorite time of day, when they could reconnect and share the private thoughts they kept to themselves during the busy daylight hours. "I have been thinking," Marla said. "Maybe we should expand the house. The children are getting bigger, and they will need more space soon." "I was thinking the same thing," Isaac agreed. "I thought we could add 2 more bedrooms and a bigger kitchen, maybe a proper dining room too." "That sounds wonderful. We could afford it now, could we not?" "We could. Business has been good. We have enough saved to do the expansion and still have a cushion for emergencies. Then let us do it. Let us build the house we always dreamed of, big enough for our family and for the future." "For the future," Isaac echoed. "I like the sound of that." The expansion of the house took the better part of a year, but when it was finished in the summer of 1891, it was everything they had hoped for. The new bedrooms gave each child their own space, and the larger kitchen made meal preparation much easier. The dining room had a big table that Isaac had built himself, large enough to seat not just their family but guests as well. They christened the new dining room with a dinner party, inviting Jack Irving, Tom and his family, and several other friends they had made over the years. It was a joyful evening, full of laughter and good food and the warmth of friendship. Looking around the table, Isaac felt a profound sense of gratitude for the life he had built. After the guests had left and the children were asleep, Isaac found Marla standing in the main room, looking at the photographs they had hung on the walls. There was one from their wedding day, stiff and formal. Another of Michael as a baby. One of Grace learning to ride. A family portrait they had sat for just last year. "Look at us," Marla said softly. "Look at what we have become." Isaac came to stand beside her, wrapping his arm around her waist. "We have come a long way from that scared woman and that lonely rancher, have we not? We have." "Isaac, I want you to know something. That night we were married, when I told you about James and what happened in Clifton, I was certain you would send me away. I was certain no man could truly accept a woman with my history. But you did. You looked at me and saw past all of that to who I really was. You gave me a chance when no one else would. And you took that chance and made something beautiful out of it," Isaac said. "You became the woman you were always meant to be, strong, confident, loved, and loving. You did that, Marla, not me." "We did it together," Marla insisted. "That is the point. Alone, we were just two people struggling to survive. Together, we have built this amazing life. Together, we are unstoppable." "Together," Isaac agreed, kissing her temple. "Always together." In 1893, Marla gave birth to their fourth child, another girl they named Rose. She completed their family, the perfect addition to their growing household. Michael was now 9, Grace was 7, Thomas was 5, and Rose was the baby everyone doted on. The ranch continued to prosper. Isaac had become a leader in the Cattlemen's Association and was frequently consulted on matters relating to range management and stock breeding. His reputation extended beyond Clifton now, with buyers coming from as far away as California to purchase his horses. Marla had found her own calling in helping other women who, like her, had made mistakes or had been judged unfairly. She quietly assisted several women in finding employment and housing, using her own experience to offer hope and practical support. It was meaningful work that gave her a sense of purpose beyond her family. One day in the fall of 1894, 12 years after their wedding, Richard Morrison appeared at the Ingram ranch. Isaac was working in the barn when he saw the old man riding up, and his first instinct was to grab his rifle. Morrison had not caused them any trouble in years, but Isaac still did not trust him. "Ingram," Morrison said as he dismounted, "I need to speak with you." "Go ahead," Isaac said warily. Morrison looked older than Isaac remembered, his face deeply lined, his movements stiff. "I have been doing some thinking about what happened with Samuel and how I treated you and your wife afterward. I was wrong." Isaac was so surprised he almost dropped the pitchfork he was holding. "What? I was wrong," Morrison repeated. "I blamed Mrs. Ingram for my nephew's death because I needed someone to blame. James was already dead, so I could not take my anger out on him. Your wife was an easy target. But the truth is, Samuel put himself in that situation. He was gambling with a known cheat and a hothead. He should have known better." "So you are saying Marla had nothing to do with it?" Isaac's voice was cold. "I am saying she had nothing to do with it," Morrison confirmed. "I have watched her over the years, watched how she conducts herself, how she has raised your children, how she has become a respected member of this community. She is a good woman, and I am sorry for the way I treated her, for the way I treated both of you." Isaac studied the older man carefully, looking for any sign of deception. But Morrison's expression was sincere, his voice heavy with regret. "What brought this on?" Isaac asked. I am dying, Morrison said bluntly. The doctor says I have maybe 6 months, cancer, he thinks. Before I go, I want to make amends for the things I did wrong. This is one of them. Isaac felt his anger drain away, replaced by pity. I am sorry to hear that, Richard. Do not be. I have lived a long life and most of it has been good. But I do not want to die with this weighing on my conscience. Will you tell Mrs. Ingram that I am sorry, and that she has my respect? You can tell her yourself, Isaac said. Come up to the house. We are about to have lunch. Morrison looked surprised but followed Isaac to the house. Marla was setting the table when they walked in, and her face went pale when she saw who was with Isaac. Richard Morrison is here to speak with you, Isaac said gently. I think you should hear what he has to say. Morrison took off his hat and twisted it in his hands. Mrs. Ingram, I owe you an apology. A long overdue apology. I blamed you for my nephew's death when you had nothing to do with it. I made your life harder than it needed to be, and I poisoned other people's attitudes toward you. That was wrong of me. You are a good woman, and you deserve respect. I am sorry. Marla stared at him for a long moment, her emotions clearly warring across her face. Finally, she spoke. Thank you for saying that, Mr. Morrison. It means more than you know. I do not deserve your forgiveness, Morrison said, but I hope you can forgive me anyway. You are a better person than I ever gave you credit for. I forgive you, Marla said quietly. Life is too short to hold on to anger. If you can let go of yours, I can let go of mine. Morrison's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, he said hoarsely. Thank you. Isaac invited Morrison to stay for lunch, and the old man accepted. They talked about the ranch, about the changes in Clifton, about the state of the cattle business. It was a surprisingly pleasant meal, and when Morrison left, he shook both their hands warmly. You have a good life here, he said. You have earned it, both of you. After he was gone, Marla collapsed into Isaac's arms. I never thought I would hear those words from him, she said. Are you all right? Isaac asked. I am better than all right. I feel like a weight has been lifted. He was the last person whose opinion still mattered, the last remnant of those awful years. And now even he has admitted I did nothing wrong. It is finally over, Isaac, all of it. It has been over for a long time, Isaac said, but I am glad he gave you that closure. You deserve to hear it. Morrison died 4 months later, in the early spring of 1895. He left a portion of his estate to the Ingram children in his will, a gesture that surprised everyone in Clifton. It was his final way of making amends, and Isaac and Marla accepted it graciously. The years continued to flow past, each one bringing its own joys and sorrows. The children grew. Michael developed into a fine young man who had his father's work ethic and his mother's compassion. Grace became a skilled horsewoman and started working with her mother to train the horses for sale. Thomas showed an aptitude for numbers and began keeping the ranch's books. Rose, the youngest, was everyone's darling, sweet and affectionate and full of life. In 1897, 15 years after their wedding, Isaac and Marla celebrated their anniversary with a quiet dinner at home. The children had cooked the meal and decorated the dining room with wildflowers. It was a simple celebration, but it was perfect. After the children had cleared the dishes and gone to bed, Isaac and Marla walked out to the porch. It was a warm summer night, the air filled with the sound of crickets and the distant call of a coyote. 15 years, Marla said wonderingly. Where has the time gone? Into building this, Isaac said, gesturing at the ranch around them. Into raising our children, into making a life together. I would not trade a single day of it. Neither would I. Isaac, do you remember what I told you on our wedding night, about my past, about why people rejected me? Of course I remember. At the time, I thought it was the end of my life. I thought I would never escape what had happened. never be anything more than the woman whose man killed Samuel Morrison. But you showed me I was wrong. You showed me that the past does not have to define the future, that we can choose who we become, regardless of where we started. You showed yourself that, Isaac said. I just gave you the opportunity. Everything else you did on your own. We did it together, Marla corrected, as she always did. That is the whole point of what we have. We are partners in everything. We make each other better. Isaac pulled Marla into his arms, holding her close as he had held her on countless nights over the past 15 years. I love you, he said simply. I love you too, Marla replied. More than words can say. Thank you for taking a chance on a woman everyone else had rejected. Thank you for seeing something in me worth saving. Thank you for letting me, Isaac said. Thank you for being brave enough to trust me to build this life with me. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Marla Ingram. They stood together on the porch as the stars came out one by one, their ranch peaceful around them, their children safe in their beds, their love as strong as it had been on the day they married. They had started as two broken people, thrown together by circumstance and necessity. But they had become so much more. They had become partners, lovers, parents, and best friends. They had built not just a ranch, but a life worth living. And as they stood there in the warm desert night, with the wind whispering through the grass and the future stretching out before them full of promise, Isaac and Marla knew that they had found something rare and precious. They had found true love, the kind that endures through hardship and grows stronger with each passing year. They had found each other, and in doing so, they had found themselves. The children continued to grow and thrive. In 1899, Michael turned 17 and started taking on more responsibility for the ranch. Isaac began teaching him everything he knew about managing the land, the stock, and the business. Michael was a quick study, and Isaac took pride in knowing his son would be able to take over the ranch someday. Grace, at 15, had developed a reputation as one of the best horse trainers in the area. People sought her out specifically to work with their difficult or skittish horses. She had her mother's gentle touch and her father's patience, a combination that worked wonders with even the most troubled animals. Thomas, at 13, was already talking about going to school in Tucson to study business and accounting. He wanted to help the ranch succeed in the modern world, understanding that good record-keeping and financial planning were just as important as hard work and good stock. Rose, at 11, was still finding her path. She loved helping her mother with the domestic work, but also enjoyed riding and working with the animals. She had not yet decided what she wanted to do with her life, and Isaac encouraged her to take her time figuring it out. One evening in the spring of 1900, 18 years after their wedding, the entire Ingram family gathered for dinner. It had become increasingly rare for all of them to be together at once, with the older children having their own activities and interests. But Isaac had insisted that they still come together for the evening meal as often as possible. "I have some news," Michael announced during dinner. "Mary Henderson and I are courting. I wanted to let you know before the whole town starts talking about it." Mary was the daughter of Bill Harper, the rancher who had apologized to Isaac years earlier. She was a sweet girl, hardworking and kind, and Isaac had always liked her. "That is wonderful news," Marla said, beaming. "Mary is a lovely girl. When did this start?" "A few weeks ago." "I wanted to be sure it was something real before I said anything." "And is it?" Isaac asked. "Something real, I mean." Michael's face grew serious. "Yes, sir, I think it is. I know I am young, but I have spent enough time with Mary to know she is the kind of woman I want to build a life with. She understands ranching, she works hard, and she makes me happy. She reminds me of you too, actually. The way you work together, the way you support each other. That is what I want." Isaac and Marla exchanged a glance, both of them touched by their son's words. "Then you have our blessing," Isaac said. "Take your time, get to know each other well. But if you have found what your mother and I have, then you are a lucky man." "I know," Michael said. "I have watched you my whole life. I have seen what a good marriage looks like. That is the standard I am holding myself to." The conversation moved on to other topics, but Isaac could not stop thinking about Michael's words. To know that their children had learned about love and partnership from watching them, that they had set a good example, filled him with pride. After dinner, as the children dispersed to their various evening activities, Isaac pulled Marla aside. "Did you hear what Michael said? About us being his standard for a good marriage?" "I heard," Marla said, her eyes shining. "It made me realize something. We did not just build a ranch and raise children. We gave them something to aspire to. We showed them what real love looks like." "We did," Isaac agreed. "And that might be the most important thing we have ever accomplished." The years that followed were full of changes. In 1902, Michael married Mary Henderson in a beautiful ceremony at the church in Clifton. It was a far cry from Isaac and Marla's quiet, sparsely attended wedding 20 years earlier. Half the town turned out to celebrate, a testament to how much the Ingram family had become a beloved part of the community. Michael and Mary built a small house on the ranch property, close enough to help with the work, but far enough to have their own privacy. They welcomed their first child, a boy they named Isaac after his grandfather, in 1903. Isaac was thrilled to be a grandfather, though he joked that he was too young for the title. Grace, meanwhile, had attracted the attention of Jack Irving's nephew, who had come to work on his uncle's ranch. The young man, Daniel Irving, was as steady and good-hearted as his uncle. Grace and Daniel married in 1904, and they too built a life centered on ranching and horses. Thomas went off to school in Tucson as planned, but he came home every summer to work on the ranch and help his father with the business side of things. Rose was growing into a beautiful young woman, thoughtful and artistic, with a talent for sketching the desert landscapes around their home. In 1907, 25 years after their wedding, Isaac and Marla found themselves sitting on their porch once again. Their children were grown or nearly grown, their ranch was thriving, and they had grandchildren playing in the yard. It was more than Isaac had ever dared to dream of on that day he first proposed to Marla. 25 years, Marla said, echoing the thought she had shared 10 years earlier. A quarter of a century. "And every year better than the last," Isaac said. "That is quite an accomplishment." "Do you ever think about that first night? When I told you about James and what happened in Clifton, I was so afraid you would send me away." "I think about it sometimes," Isaac admitted. "I think about how different our lives would have been if I had reacted the way you feared. But I also think that even then, some part of me knew you were special. I knew you were worth taking a chance on." "You changed my life," Marla said simply. "You took a woman who had nothing, who was nothing in the eyes of the world, and you made her into someone. You gave me value when everyone else saw only shame. You loved me when I was certain I was unlovable. That is a gift I can never fully repay." "You repay it every single day," Isaac said. "By being my wife, my partner, my best friend. By raising our children and building this life with me. By loving me as much as I love you. That is all the payment I need." Marla leaned her head on Isaac's shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the mountains. Their grandchildren's laughter drifted across the yard, mixed with the sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. It was a symphony of domestic happiness, and Isaac listened to it with deep contentment. "I was thinking," Marla said after a while, "we should have a big party for our 25th anniversary. Invite all our friends, all our family. Celebrate what we have built together." "That sounds perfect," Isaac said. "We have a lot to celebrate." The anniversary party took place on a warm June evening. The Ingrams had set up tables and chairs in the yard, strung up lanterns, and prepared enough food to feed an army. Jack Irving was there, older now but still as friendly and supportive as ever. Tom Crawford and his family came, along with Bill Harper and his family, and dozens of other friends and neighbors. Michael gave a toast that brought tears to Marla's eyes. "To my parents, who showed me and my siblings what real love looks like. Who built a ranch from nothing and a family from two broken people. Who never gave up on each other or on their dreams. Mom and Dad, you are the foundation everything in our lives is built on. We love you and we are so grateful for everything you have given us." The party lasted late into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling. Isaac danced with Marla under the stars, holding her close as they swayed to the fiddle music. Looking into her eyes, he saw the same love and devotion he had seen on their wedding day, only deeper and richer with 25 years of shared experience. "We did it," Marla whispered to him. "We built the life we dreamed of." "We did," Isaac agreed, "and we are not done yet. We still have years ahead of us, more adventures to share, more memories to make." "I look forward to every single one of them," Marla said. "As long as I have you, I have everything I need." The party was a perfect celebration of their life together, a culmination of everything they had worked for and built. When the last guests finally left and the ranch was quiet again, Isaac and Marla cleaned up together, working side by side as they always had. "That was a wonderful party," Marla said as they carried the last of the dishes inside. "I will remember it forever." "Me too," Isaac said. "But you know what? I think the best parts of our life together are not the big celebrations. They are the quiet moments. The mornings working side by side, the evenings on the porch, the nights falling asleep in each other's arms. That is where our real life is." "You are right," Marla said. "It is the little things that matter most. The daily choice to love each other, to work together, to build something meaningful. That is what marriage really is." They went to bed that night holding each other, grateful for the life they had built and excited for the future still to come. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own blessings. More grandchildren arrived. Thomas came home from Tucson with a degree and a fiancée, a smart young woman who shared his interest in business. Rose married a schoolteacher and moved to Phoenix, though she visited often. The ranch continued to prosper under the combined efforts of Isaac Michael, and now Michael's son Isaac Jr., who showed all the signs of becoming a fine rancher himself. In 1912, 30 years after their wedding, Isaac and Marla found themselves alone on the ranch for the first time in decades. Michael and his family had gone to visit Mary's relatives, and the other children were busy with their own lives. It was strange to have the house so quiet but also peaceful. "Just you and me," Isaac said as they sat down to a simple dinner. "Like the old days." "The old days were not quite this quiet," Marla reminded him with a smile. "We were always working, always building, always planning for the future." "And now the future is here," Isaac said. "We built everything we set out to build. The ranch is secure, the children are settled, we have grandchildren and the promise of great-grandchildren to come. We did it, Marla." "We did," Marla agreed. She reached across the table and took Isaac's hand. "I want you to know something, Isaac. These 30 years with you have been the happiest of my life. You took a chance on a woman nobody wanted and made her into someone people respect. You loved me when I did not know how to love myself. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. I am only the woman I am today because of you." "We made each other," Isaac said. "That is what I believe. I was just a lonely rancher before you came along. You gave my life meaning beyond just work and survival. You taught me what love really is, what partnership really is. I am a better man because of you." They finished their dinner and walked out to the porch, as they had done thousands of times over the past 30 years. The ranch spread out before them in the moonlight, familiar and beloved. Every inch of it held memories of their life together. "When I think back to that day we got married," Marla said softly, "I remember being so scared. Scared of what you would think of me, scared of what the future would hold, scared that I would never be able to escape my past. I never imagined this. I never imagined being this happy, this fulfilled, this loved." "I remember being nervous too," Isaac admitted. "I was taking a big risk, marrying a woman I barely knew, a woman the whole town had turned their backs on. But something told me it was the right thing to do. And that something was right. Fate," Marla said, "or destiny, or whatever you want to call it. I think we were meant to find each other, Isaac. Two broken people who became whole together." "That is a nice way to think about it," Isaac said. He pulled Marla close, wrapping his arms around her as they stood under the stars. "I love you, Marla Ingram. I have loved you for 30 years, and I will love you for however many years we have left." "I love you too," Marla whispered, "more than words can ever express. Thank you for seeing me when no one else would. Thank you for loving me when I thought I was unlovable. Thank you for giving me this beautiful life." They stood together in the warm desert night, two people who had started as strangers and become soulmates. They had faced rejection and built acceptance. They had taken nothing and created everything. They had found each other in the unlikeliest of circumstances and built a love that would last forever. The moon rose higher, casting silver light across the land. In the distance, a coyote howled. The horses nickered softly in their corrals. The ranch hummed with the quiet sounds of life continuing, generations flowing into generations, the past and the future intertwined. And Isaac and Marla Ingram, standing together on the porch of the home they had built, knew that they had accomplished something precious and rare. They had found true love. They had built a family. They had created a legacy that would outlast them both. They had taken a chance on each other when no one else would, and they had been rewarded with a lifetime of happiness. It was more than either of them had ever hoped for, and it was exactly what they both deserved. As they went inside to bed, walking hand in hand through the house full of memories, they were content. Their story, which had started with rejection and fear, had become a tale of love, redemption, and triumph. And though they could not know exactly how many years they had left together, they knew those years would be filled with the same love, partnership, and devotion that had defined the past 30. They had built something beautiful together, and it would endure long after they were gone. Their children and grandchildren would carry on their legacy, remembering the rancher who had married a woman rejected by everyone, and how that simple act of faith and courage had blossomed into something extraordinary. It was a love story for the ages, played out against the backdrop of the Wild West, and it had a perfect ending. Not because everything was easy or perfect, but because two people had chosen each other and had never stopped choosing each other, day after day, year after year, for 30 years and counting. That was what real love looked like. And Isaac and Marla Ingram had found it against all odds, in the dusty town of Clifton, Arizona, in the year 1882, when a practical rancher had made the best decision of his life, and married a woman everyone else had rejected.